Why do modern games take up so much damn space? Not that long ago, just 100 gigabytes of storage was plenty enough to hold a couple of massive, awesome video games, a pile of useless programs for virgins, and you'd still have 50 gigs left, which was plenty of space for exactly one photo of your mother.
Treat me like what is.
But that time disappeared fast. Now, a typical AAA game weighs as much as about 5 Witcher 3s, 20 Skyrims, or 1 Fortnite. And just like the free space on your drive, the era of great, huge games that didn't eat up your hard drive has quietly vanished. So did developers forget how to properly package their games? Is this just a conspiracy by companies selling storage? Or maybe I'm just talking bullshit? All of the above. Okay, let's start with the simple stuff. Why the fuck does Fortnite take up twice as much space as Batman Arkham Knight? What the fuck? I can understand why Concord weighed a lot when it was still available. I mean, we can also understand why games like RDR2 weigh more than 100 gigabytes, even though it was released 7 years ago. The reason why I want to mention this game first is that it is a benchmark for how every gigabyte works to provide a better gaming experience for the player. The reason for its 150 gigabyte weight is for the incredible density of the world. It's not just a big empty map like in Ubisoft games. It's a world filled with different objects and unique events. There are 234 species of animals in the game, each with its own set of unique models, animations, and sound design. There are thousands of unique models of weapons, clothing, and household items. The reactions of horse eggs to cold weather alone take up a huge amount of space. The game has over 100 different movements, reactions, and even psychological details that had to be made into separate data sets. Add this to a living world where literally almost every PC has several layers of animations and reactions. Even a random vagrant on the street has several unique behavior options. 4K high quality textures that are only available on PC, consoles, you can suck it. Add in the music, a shit ton of dialogue, and those hyper detailed cutscenes with full motion capture. And all this data is stored in formats with minimal compression to avoid quality loss. Without this weight, RDR2 would not have the detail that makes it a technological breakthrough. So yes, sometimes huge weight is justified. But in the gaming industry, there are examples where developers have been able to fit a large, high-quality, graphically advanced world into a much smaller amount of memory. Let's remember Metro Exodus. I don't know how many of you might have played it, but the game came out a few years after RDR2, weighed 3 times less, and looked incredible. This is a prime example of how a studio with limited resources was able to cram in large open levels, incredible graphics with various breakthrough technologies for the time, and a 30+ hour storyline. All of this was squeezed into a very compact volume thanks to rigorous asset optimization, texture compression, and the elimination of unnecessary copies of the same content. And what you see on the screen right now, unless you've closed the window with this video, of course, the developers have packed into only a third of the weight of Stalker 2, which visually, technically, and gameplay-wise closely resembles Exodus. But why did this happen? Why are two very similar games so radically different in terms of how much space they take up? In fact, Stalker 2 is also a very large and good game, but the reason why it weighs a whopping 160 gigabytes lies in a completely different approach to game development. First, the Unreal Engine 5. I mention this engine very often on this channel, and not always in a good light, but I will continue to do so until Unreal Engine 6 is released. So, this engine uses nanite and lumen technologies, which require storing massive libraries of geometry and lighting in high resolution. In fact, every brick or pipe can be a full HD model. Secondly, the game uses 4K textures even for small objects that most players will only see in passing. Add to that, huge cutscenes without aggressive compression, unique models for hundreds of inventory items and weapons, and you've got 160 gigabytes. This is neither bad nor good, but it's just a different approach. You could say it's justified, as GSC has opted for maximum quality without regard for weight. And although the game doesn't feel 3 times as big as Exodus, its weight is explained by this approach to packaging. And here we come to an interesting point. Games like RDR2 show how weight justifies itself. Metro Exodus shows that it can be done in an optimized and intelligent way, and Stalker 2 shows us that you can go in the other direction and get huge numbers. But there is also a fourth category. Perhaps this is the category that made me make this video. Games that weigh hundreds of gigabytes are not because of technology, high quality, or large detailed worlds, but because someone specifically wants you to free up all the space on your hard drive just to play the game. Games that are bloated with unnecessarily gigantic sizes. And the question arises, why do developers do this on purpose? The early 2000s, a time when game weighed less than a gigabyte. Years passed, new generations of consoles appeared, and games already weighed several gigabytes, sometimes even more, but it was noticeable. Games were becoming bigger and more elaborate, which is why no one was surprised that they were gradually getting thicker. But now, the gaming industry, as if in a depression after being dumped by its boyfriend, is rapidly gaining weight. Very soon, Call of Duty will be sold with its own SSD in the box. Like, really? But do these hundreds of gigabytes really mean scale? Marvel Rivals weighs more than The Witcher 3, but does it offer the same scale and detail? Call of Duty, with all modes enabled, weighs 3 times more than any shooter that offers better graphics and more content. What exactly are these hundreds of gigabytes spent on? And here's my theory. This weight is intentional. They deliberately cram a bunch of useless content that you'll never even see just to artificially increase the weight of the game. And they do this for one reason only, so that you never delete it. I mean, think about how many times you wanted to delete Fortnite or Call of Duty because you're fed up with school kids beating you because you play like trash. But then you look at those 200 gigabytes of memory and realize that you want to get fucked by kids. Wait, whoa, 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 whoa. Pause. And then you realize that downloading everything again will take a long time, so you just leave it. And to free up space on your hard drive, you just delete a couple of photos of your mom. Treat me like so yeah, this is how they get you hooked on their games in a rather stupid but surprisingly effective way. They shove tons of useless content that you'll never even see so that you think twice before deleting the game. But there's another reason. In fact, big game publishers are in cahoots with media manufacturers who want to spend more of your money. Nah, I'm kidding. There's no such conspiracy. In fact, SSDs have become so cheap that publishers simply no longer feel the pain threshold for extra tens of gigabytes. The NAND market is quite volatile. NAND is a type of flash memory used to build SSDs and memory cards. So, after the price collapse in 2023 to 2024, in the fourth quarter of 2025, contracts for NAND and DRAM rose by 15 to 20% due to demand from AI infrastructure. That is, flash memory manufacturers already hold the lever of price and supply. For game studios, this is another signal. Optimization is not necessary as long as gamers are used to buying additional memory or deleting other games. But now, I want to address the developers. Maybe, just maybe, it's time to make not more gigabytes, but more games that we really want to keep installed? Suck my meat.